Spirit Mornings. And next, we're going to talk with the author of a book called The Matron of Paris, the story of St. Genevieve. We'll talk with that author next.
Spirit Catholic Radio. Encounter Jesus.
Philip Campbell, thanks for being with us, the author of the book Matron of Paris, the story of St. Genevieve. Who is St. Genevieve, Philip, and when did she live?
Hi, it's really good to be here to talk about St. Genevieve, who, since I wrote this book, she's become one of my new favorite saints. St. Genevieve is a French saint who lived around the time of the fall of the Roman Empire in the 5th and 6th centuries, and she's associated with the city of Paris. In fact, she's the patron saint of the city of Paris.
So, Philip, what interested you in St. Genevieve?
Well, her life was just so wildly exciting. A lot of times I read saint histories, and you read stories of very pious and holy women religious, and you read a lot of stories about saints like Teresa Lisieux or Teresa of Avila, whose lives were very interior, and a lot of their life took place behind the cloister. When I read St. Genevieve's story, she was a religious woman as well, so there was some of that, but she was also deeply involved in all the politics and the drama that was going on in the time that she lived. She lived in a time when there wasn't a lot of civil authority. Authority had broken down in the fall of the Roman Empire, and so the people of Paris really looked to her as a leader, and she ended up being very instrumental in, for example, saving the people of Paris from Attila the Hun when the city was taken over by the Frankish barbarians. She negotiated with the king to release hostages and go lenient on the Christians of the city. She oversaw the defense of the city during various times of danger, relieved the city during a famine. So she was very deeply involved in the community and had a very active role. So I just thought it was really fascinating, the idea that there's this woman who's consecrated herself to the religious life, to prayer and the interior life, but just circumstance keeps forcing her to take an active affair in the world. And I thought that was just a fascinating kind of story that I wanted to tell.
Such a role in the community of Paris during her life. What virtues of St. Genevieve do you think speak to the needs of Catholics today that you address in the book? Correct, Philip?
Yeah, well, kind of going back to what I just said, I think Genevieve's acceptance of God's will, of saying, like, okay, I might have imagined my life was going to be this way, but these are the things that are happening. This is what God is putting in my life. And rather than being frustrated that things haven't worked out the way I wanted them, I need to accept what is in front of me and then try to find how to do the best that I can in the situation that's given me. And that's really the approach that she took to everything, and really worked out wonderfully for her and for the city of Paris and the French Church, given that we're still talking about her today in the year 2023. Right. So I think that's a very admirable virtue, especially for people who are living in times that are maybe confusing or uncertain about where things are going. It's something to keep before our eyes.
Yeah. Now, Philip, her most famous miracle happened after her death. Tell us about this one.
Yeah, a long time after her death. So she died in the year around 512, and in the year 1129, in the city of Paris, Paris had been struck by a plague, and it was raging out of control. And the people turned to Saint Genevieve, who they still revered as the protectress of Paris. And so the Archbishop took her relics out in the reliquaries and did a procession down the streets of Paris, and people came up and touched the reliquary, and everybody who touched it was healed. But more than that, as the reliquary passed through the town, kind of as it went through each neighborhood, the plague would abate as the reliquaries passed by, so that by the time they got to the church, the plague had ceased in the entire town. And it was a very, very notable miracle. It was commemorated. I think it's still commemorated in the city of Paris with a special feast.
This book is, the way that you write this book, it's easy for, I enjoy, I thumb through a couple of the chapters because we have the book. But tell us who the book is actually written for, the age group, Philip Campbell, that the book is written for, the Matron of Paris.
Yeah, good question. I I think the book is probably written for kids. I don't know. I'd say I'd say around 10 to 12 is the sweet spot. But I think that I don't know, the way it ended up coming together. I think anyone can enjoy it. I've had adults tell me that they've enjoyed it very much. But the age group I intended it for was probably like middle school. But it is pretty universally accessible, I think.
I agree with you. Very universally accessible. The Matron of Paris, the story of Saint Genevieve. You, like the author Philip Campbell, will be very intrigued with this beautiful Saint Genevieve. One more question for you, Philip. One thing that you learned about this saint that you either can't get out of your brain or just was mind-boggling, something that was so special.
Yeah, one thing I learned about her. I learned to recognize. Well, I learned to recognize her in iconography by her pigtails, which was very unique because often, and you'll see it's on the cover of the book, but that's not a coincidence. If you look in any iconography, stained glass windows, whatever, she always has pigtails, and that's very rare because you associate religious consecrated women with cutting their hair short. Genevieve lived in a much earlier time, though, and as far as I can tell, this was a custom in early France where the women would cut their hair short, but they would leave these little locks hanging down on the sides. And so St. Genevieve can be recognized in iconography as looking like your conventional religious woman, but she has two usually blonde pigtails hanging down the side.
Remarkable. Yeah, quite the saint, and thank you for this beautiful book, Philip, Matron of Paris, the story of St. Genevieve.
Yes, you can find it anywhere books are sold. Matron of Paris, the story of St. Genevieve. And it is great for individuals who are doing homeschooling or teachers in schools who would like to explore saints. This would be an awesome book for you to help promote and study Catholic life and Catholic virtues. Philip, thanks for taking time with us on Spirit Mornings.
Thank you.
Spirit Mornings on the Spirit Catholic Radio Network. Again, it's Matron of Paris, the story of St. Genevieve. Find it anywhere books are sold and ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you. I'm Jen Brown along with Bruce McGregor.